Welcome back. It's time for Media Watch on France 24, and we look at the top stories in the international press today. James Creedon is with us with the lowdown. Good evening.
Good evening, Anna.
The main story here in France is Nicolas Sarkozy announcing he is indeed running for re-election. And his central message today was around a strong France. If France is strong, the French will be protected.
That's right. So it was, a predictable enough appearance on the main evening news show on TF1. Let's take a look at this webpage first, though, because it's perhaps the most predictable headline we've seen in a French newspaper ever.
We've seen it coming for weeks and weeks. In fact, everyone's been waiting for it.
This is not a shock announcement. Everybody had the headline prepared, the first two paragraphs prepared.
He's not retiring.
We knew where this was going, Actually, and just to kind of continue on that vein, first of all, let's take a look at the headline of the Huffington Post. Tout ça pour ça, which essentially means...
The Huffington Post, of course, in France, which just launched.
Exactly. That's essentially much ado about nothing. We're really not that shocked. And just to look at The Guardian, because on the front page there, not a single mention of this announcement, which
it's
basically...
It's not even news for the
It's not even news. Everybody knew. Everybody knew. But to get back to the substance of what he said today, classic announcement on the most watched evening news show with Laurence Ferrari, who wouldn't be known as a presenter who's known for grilling him in interviews. So I saw one tweet actually that said Laurence Ferrari was invited onto the 20h presented by Nicolas Sarkozy, which was sort of showing that really he knew how this was going to go. There was going to be no shock. And he used the image of being a captain of a ship. And he said, when asked if he was going to stand again, he said, would a captain abandon his ship in the middle of stormy waters? Of course not. So, and he also unveiled his slogan, La France forte, a strong France. And there's more on the slogan later if we have time for it. But I suppose in the meantime, just a mention of his tweets.
His new multimedia presence. Nicolas Sarkozy's profile on Twitter is a very new thing.
That's right. It was just today, in fact, this morning that he tweeted for the first time. And here you have that Twitter page. Within hours, he'd accumulated tens of thousands of followers. In fact, he'd accumulated in a 12-hour period 1/3 of the number of followers that François Hollande, his main contender, had in a much longer period, to the point where actually some observers were saying, hold on a minute, 1 out of every 2 followers has no followers themselves. Now, this is getting technical for people who don't use Twitter, but what they're suggesting is that his numbers were boosted by perhaps some sort of, communications firm.
So trolls, so to speak?
Possibly.
Fake followers?
Possibly. Now, that's a very common practice, actually, in the private sector. So it wouldn't be surprising if something like that had happened. No proof whatsoever. That's just speculative. And this is François Bayrou's communications guru. He's another candidate who tweeted that.
Speaking of Twitter, Cécilia Attias, Nicolas Sarkozy's ex-wife, has tweeted her support for him.
That's right. Now, if you search Sarkozy on Twitter today, the top tweet is, in fact, what she said. Good luck to Nicolas Sarkozy, who is starting his campaign today. She, of course, they divorced very early in his 5-year presidential term. It was a big period of turmoil. So this, I suppose, is something positive for Nicolas Sarkozy on Twitter today, a sign of a calmer private life and peace having been made with his ex-wife, although that's nothing new. Now, the top tweet before that, to show that Twitter isn't always very serious, was a fake Queen Elizabeth Twitter account saying that he hadn't sent her a Valentine's card. So, I mean, Twitter is not always serious.
Not always to be taken seriously. Staying with Nicolas Sarkozy's multimedia presence, there's been a Facebook controversy.
That's right. Now, this was the magazine L'Express that broke this story. They are putting forward the theory that Facebook is supporting Nicolas Sarkozy over the other candidates because, according to them, they provided him with technical assistance on his new Facebook page, which incorporates the so-called timeline feature.
Can he do things that regular folk can't?
Well, what is certain is that they have what is almost certain, according to L'Express's version of things, is that they helped him to optimize the timeline features so that he could get the most out of them. Now, what's interesting is perhaps he did need a little bit of help with Facebook, because if you look at his old Facebook page right here, this is the kind of much older format.
It's not as glamorous at all.
It's not as glamorous. On the new format, comments are disabled, so you can't leave any comments on it, which is probably just as well, because on his old Facebook page, he announced this evening that he would be appearing on TF1. And if you read the comments, a lot of them are very, very negative, such as, what's on the other networks, I'm going to switch over, etc. So I suppose, opponents such as Hollande were not happy, and they sent a letter to Facebook saying you shouldn't be helping out one candidate over the other. So anyway, it's a tricky business, mastering social media.
James Creedon, thanks very much for walking us through the ins and outs of Nicolas Sarkozy's internet campaign. Yes.